Hi there, dear friends, and thank you for joining me in this offering experiment in which I will be offering some astrological information about the current scenario that we're living in the world today, and some very key shifts that have happened with some of the major planets in the last few months, which may help you to gain some clarity on what you are going through personally. We'll see. But what's notable about the astrological configurations is that on January 14th of 2020, the planet Saturn moved from the sign of Sagittarius into his own home of Capricorn. And it has been many years since this has happened, right around 24 years, 25-ish years. And actually, it was right when Saturn was in Capricorn, back in 1990-91, when Ananda Village itself, the community that I live in and the organization that I am grateful to be part of, went through one of their major purifying tests, challenges, and it had to do with a lawsuit that was waged against them. And what it ended up having, what effect it ended up having is that at first, what seemed like it was going to destroy a very beautiful spiritual light in the world, it looked hopeless for Ananda. The prosecution had a lot of money and Ananda had very little, so it did not look very hopeful for their survival. And over the following years, Ananda itself began to grow exponentially like it never had before. And this lawsuit, which at first seemed like a negative attack, ended up opening up Yogananda's energy in a major way for the world. If you'd like to know more about that, you can read the book A Fight for Religious Freedom, written by the lawyer who represented Ananda in that case. The reason I bring it up is because here we are again. Saturn is in the exact same position in the zodiac when that challenge began for Ananda Village and for Ananda worldwide. Now, here we are, and it's happening, and we are experiencing something threatening to the very survival, not just of the community or the organization called Ananda, but to the world at large. And when Saturn goes into his own home of Capricorn, it's a very powerful time. You could think of it as perhaps that a father has left his children home alone for some time, and they think that he's coming back in, let's say, another couple of days, but instead his trip is cut short and he comes home early, and the children have thrown parties they have not cleaned up. There's pizza crusts all over the place, and the place is just a mess. And father is going to get home and he's going to be surprised at how dirty the house is, and it will be upsetting to the father. So in this case, think of Saturn as the father, and he is getting home into the sign of Capricorn, which involves governments, world structures, systems of any type, authorities. Capricorn is a sign of structure, of authority, and of government and organization. And when Saturn gets into Capricorn, he is going to do his job. And what is Saturn's job? It is to cleanse, to purify, and to reveal what needs to change. For that reason, Saturn is our friend, even though mostly he's considered the king of malefic planets. Well, why would we think that about a planet? Well, it's because he reveals to us the work that we need to do. And therefore, not everyone wants to do that work, and so therefore they struggle, they suffer when that work is revealed to them. Another thing that's notable is that Mars has joined Saturn. And this has brought an element of kind of impatience and intense passion to Saturn and Capricorn at this time. Good news is, on May 3rd, Mars will move away from Saturn again, and they will not be, as an astrologer might say, fighting. Now, Mars is different than Saturn in that Mars is passionate and wants immediate results, and Saturn has a longer vision, is slower, and has a lot more wisdom. So if Saturn is putting the world in a position that is uncomfortable, Mars is going to become impatient with it. And that's kind of what we see. is there's a battle going on. It's not just a battle on the planet, it's a battle within each of us. And I have my notebook here today to remind me of some things that I would like to share about this Saturn and Mars battle that we're looking at. Let me read to you something about Mars. Mars wants immediate gratification. It's often in the heat of a moment of passion. The Mars in us, which represents our third chakra of fire, will often do something to negatively affect the long-term future. In the heat of passion, because of our attachments, we often will hurt emotionally the people we love the most, for example. Or we'll do something that we regret. Well, that's Mars. He's impatient, but watch out for him in yourself. When you get too passionate emotionally, you may need to step away from the situation, take some deep breaths, and calm that passion before you act, before you say something. Now, Saturn's difference from Mars is that it had much longer term vision, much more wisdom, much more patient. And the key planet that has shifted since January is Saturn itself. It's in a very powerful position to, I would say, take apart structures that no longer work and to rebuild structures that hold promise. Now that's an external thing, but what about you? And during this time in which Saturn is in Capricorn, it's going to affect you individually. What systems do you have in your mind, in your emotional, habitual response to life that are no longer serving you? Because it's equal opportunity for each of us individually to take advantage of this time, to restructure our own systems of mind that are no longer serving us. And it's very likely that during a great challenge like the one that the world is facing at this time, that it's going to affect each of us uniquely, and that there will be many unique viewpoints of the situation itself. And so you could think of human beings as individual mountaintops, and they're walking around, they're moving around, and the way that we view life is from a specific place on that mountaintop. We can view it from our lower self. We can view life around us from an irritated place, as we all know what that feels like, or we can view life from a calm and detached place. It has to do with how much we raise the energy within ourselves. But either way, there's going to be different viewpoints. So the question is, can we make our viewpoint, can we become less attached to what our view is in light of all the different viewpoints of what's going on in the world at this time? Because if you allow yourself to become upset emotionally because there is another person whose viewpoint differs from yours, then you are being revealed, something is being revealed to you, and that is a system in yourself that needs fixing. If we become emotionally upset because of the differing views of other people, it's revealing a system in us that needs restructuring. And this is exactly what Saturn in Capricorn at this time is giving us the opportunity to do, which is to restructure our mind and emotional nature. So be aware when you encounter, during a time of stress and conflict in the world, of the differing viewpoints of the struggle and how they affect you emotionally. What I have in my notes here, it says, it becomes less about what we believe about a situation or how our beliefs differ from others, and more about keeping our own perspective free of negative emotion, which will most certainly cloud our own consciousness and remove our feeling of clarity of perception. So we want to be able to perceive our own unique challenge clearly. And if we allow the viewpoints of others to emotionally affect us, it will remove our ability to work through our own unique personal karma. I hope that makes sense. It's very important, I think, because we are in a world in transition at this time. Those who are dependent on the current system will certainly fight to protect it. those who the system's no longer working for will willingly give it up and want to build another system. And this presents a polarity, doesn't it? And so we want to be aware of how that emotionally affects us when we see the great difference in opinion on the planet that's happening. That's what we want to get at, is our own personal system. How is it malfunctioning emotionally and blinding us of clarity? Because that's how we're going to be working through our own individual karma, is becoming clear, centered, and understanding our own, not anybody else's lesson, our own lesson. And again, because of your horoscope being completely unique compared to all other human beings, that means that this challenge will affect you uniquely. And we would need to see your personal chart to understand what area of your life might be growing from this. And you probably already know what area of your... there's 12 houses in astrology, and each one represents an area of life manifestation, such as family, career, money, security on the material plane, security on the spiritual plane. So the 12 houses, they all represent something different. And perhaps in another live video, I might do a little explanation of the 12 different houses, the 12 different areas of life manifestation. But let me finish reading the point that I would like to really make clear today. Because each person's karma is absolutely unique, we cannot assume that anyone will view the world quite like we do. Remember, they're a different mountaintop. They're viewing from a different vista, and what they see is quite different because of all their experiences, because of their parents being different than yours, because of their mentors and the people that they've met in life and received inspiration and education from. That's all shaping the terrain of their mountain. And so we each are looking from a different perspective, and most importantly is to respect that fact, that truth, that each individual has the right to perceive the world as they choose to. If that brings pain, that is up to the individual to change their perspective. But we can do nothing to change another person if we're unwilling first to raise our own awareness and recognize our own unique lessons in each individual challenge. So we want to be able to raise our perspective and be able to respect all, to be patient and to be faithful, that the challenge is appropriate and it is in fact essential. So what Earth is experiencing, what the USA and Italy and India and all the different nations are experiencing right now, it has a purpose behind it. And if we can gain faith in the Creator, the one who organizes all these seemingly crazy scenarios, then we'll be able to move through this with more peace and clarity. And the reason I brought up the Ananda lawsuit at the beginning is that's a very good example of a situation that at first looked like destruction, and it turned into something very expansive. So if you I have a cool story we could tell, just to be able to give a more practical light on this. Everyone's view is different because everyone's horoscope is different. Each person is looking through a different lens. But there was a specific group of Catholic nuns and monks, and this was long ago, and they had been convinced that the only true religion was their unique approach to Catholicism. And so when they all passed away from the planet, they went to heaven, and they went to a specific compartment of heaven that was cloistered off and had walls up, and helped them to feel we're the only ones who made it to heaven. Now there was another man who had gone to heaven, and he was more of a religious liberal, but he loved God, and that's what you must do if you would like to reclaim your birthright, is to learn how to love the Creator who made you and the universe around you. And this man made it to heaven, and he was walking around with St. Peter and very happy to be there, looking at all the different walks of life who had chosen this path of love and had made it to heaven. And then he found this wall. He said, "What's on the other side of this wall?" And St. Peter said, "Oh, shush, That's where this specific, these Catholics over there, they believe they're the only ones here in heaven, and we need to keep that true for them. So we create a boundary for them. And it's a very interesting story because it shows how our own attached belief system weaves boundaries around ourselves and prevents us from being able to enter into an expansive state of consciousness that will lead us closer and closer to the real heaven, which contains no boundaries, excludes no one at all, regardless of what they have done. The truth is that each individual will enter back into their origin, back into their state of being, which would be oneness with the Creator. So the challenge of each of us individually, we are going to see this differently. And it's essential for our growth that we respect all the different viewpoints happening at this time. And if you find yourself triggered emotionally by another person's view, remember, that's revealing to you a system in your own self in need of restructuring. And that's what's going on the planet right now, a systems restructuring. And that will touch very much on world government, world leadership, authority, laws, the Federal Reserve and financial systems, everything that mankind has relied upon on this earth that is considered like an organization or a system or a structure, it's going to be cleaned. Dad's home, and he doesn't like what he's seen, what the kids have done to the house, and he's going to begin cleaning. So how long will this last? Saturn will remain in the sign of Capricorn until January of 2023. So we could theorize astrologically that this period of world structure reorientation, cleaning, and system reestablishing, workable system, it may take about 3 years. January 2023 is when this big karmic planet we call Saturn will move into Aquarius. But don't feel like that's going to be how long we have to wait, because other changes will take place. And one of them is Jupiter will enter Aquarius in March of next year, and this will be a very good thing. Jupiter right now is in Capricorn with Saturn, and Jupiter is a planet of dharma, of truth, of light, of revelation, of reality. And it's kind of being shadowed by the strength of Saturn in his own home right now. So when Jupiter finally completes his journey through Capricorn and enters Aquarius, this is actually during Jupiter's transit through Aquarius is when India celebrates a very well-known festival we call the Kumbh Mela. And the Kumbh Mela is a celebration of the return of the light. And you know what they're celebrating? They're celebrating Jupiter coming out of Capricorn and moving through the first 10 degrees of Aquarius, which is a kind of an unstable position. It's called a Rahu Nakshatra, but I don't want to confuse you with terminologies. But once Jupiter hits the first 10 degrees of Aquarius, India celebrates. All the saints come down from the mountains, and there's a gigantic spiritual festival, and they know it as the return of the light. So when Jupiter enters Aquarius, I expect some positive things to happen on the planet that we'll perhaps at that time become aware of why. Why did we have to go through all this? Why did all this darkness have to seem like it was in control for such a long time? Well, learn how to endure. If you can develop a meditation practice, if you can develop a life of deep prayer in which you call to the divine and ask for endurance, for calmness, for the ability to uplift your viewpoint so that it doesn't remain stuck in fear and anger towards those whose views differ from you. This is the most important thing each of us can do right now, is raise our awareness, affirm love for all, and respect the very different viewpoints that man brings to this life, because they're all completely unique. One of the reasons I'm grateful for astrology is because it's shown me that very truth very practically, is that each and every person is different. And so we cannot expect them, no matter what we say to them, to become exactly like we are, to see things exactly how we do. So let me consult here. The negative emotions that our engagements with others the negative emotions that our engagements with others trigger in us reveals to us the work that needs to be done. And this is very much an individual situation. So you tell me, answer this question if you can. How is our collective world situation affecting you personally? And what unique lessons is it exposing to you that you must focus on learning? Because that's a good question to remind yourself when you become convinced, once again, as this world is great at convincing us, that our problem is external to us, that our problem is someone else, that our problem is life circumstances. It's not. Your problem is your own systems need restructuring. And so this is a very great opportunity for humanity to change. And when Saturn enters Aquarius, which will be, as I mentioned, in 2023, in January, that's another one of Saturn's homes. He owns two areas of the zodiac, Capricorn and Aquarius. They're right next to each other. So we get about 5 years of Saturn go through his own home. And do you know what Aquarius is? It's much more world consciousness based. It's much more consciousness based. So perhaps after the structures have crumbled, the ones that don't work anymore, the new structures have been begun and are being built, we'll enter into a time in which we get to see another problem. It's not the structures. It's the consciousness. It's the way that we think, the way that we separate ourselves from other people, the way that we exclude other people when their views and practices don't match our own. This will be another few-year period in which humanity will become aware that the problem is not actually changing the structure. We have done that now. The problem will still exist, and the world consciousness then will hopefully become a focus, that people need to start meditating. People need to start communing with their Creator and understanding that this world is made of spirit. This world is made of a spiritual reality that includes light and darkness. And if we do not live for the light, if we do not daily commune with the light, the darkness will have great power to deceive us. So first, cling to the light, cling to the positivity, cling to the love and the respect for your fellow human beings. Because if you remember in the movie Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader because the Emperor convinced him that anger was his strongest power, that fear, the fear of him losing his beloved, caused him to turn to the dark side. So you see, even our righteous anger, which Anakin Skywalker, he was angry at the Emperor, but he fell because of that dark emotional force. So try to imagine your own life. There's a battle of light and darkness going on within you. And the darkness will have more power over you to deceive you and blind you if you allow your own mental system to become negative emotionally. If you allow your anger to run your mind, or if you feed negative thinking. Think about it today. The way that you feel now, today, whether you've had a good day or a bad day, it's because of the thoughts that you've been thinking. So if we can learn how to restructure what's going on here, we just might begin to feel a little better here. And my experience is it's very true. This is where we need to get, is into the system. So recognize your malfunction. Try to offer it up through some type of prayer or meditation technique and ask the cosmic creator to lend you a hand in changing that system, which you recognize now no longer serves you. So you see, what's going on the planet very much mirrors what's going on in each individual. Is we're going to be given a life situation, a scenario that affects everyone, like this crisis we're in. but it's going to ultimately be mirrored within each of us. We will see in the mirror our work to be done amidst this new challenge. So lastly, I wanted to just share one more thing. And what is it? Saturn is praised for his ability to reveal your karmic obligations. And what that means is the work that needs doing. Saturn is a great, great friend of humanity, because if it weren't for the force of the divine Saturn shining on Earth, shining in each human from their first chakra, and if it weren't for that presence, we wouldn't have the ability at all to identify in ourselves what needed changing. Now, the reason Saturn is considered the king of malefics is because this realization that it's what I change about myself that matters most. That is not very clear in the darker ages of humanity. We think that something external is either good or bad. But we're beginning to see, aren't we, as humanity in general is beginning to see that a lot of good can come out of a lot of bad. That God uses darkness to transform this world just like he uses light to do it. So when we go through a gigantic karmic bomb, as they say, which, you probably are going through one now, I know I am. And it is, yes, it's because of the world situation from the first glance. But we will inevitably discover valuable work to be done within ourselves. And you know what the great secret is? Is that if you don't like what's going on in your world around you, then you must change the magnet in yourself, because you are attracting a certain situation. And to raise our energy through the practices of yoga and meditation, it gradually has an effect on our inner magnetism, and thus we will begin to attract something better. So if you don't like your life circumstances, it's not in changing the people around you, it's in changing yourself that you will find ultimate results. So I think now I'll just close by thanking each of you for attending today, or if you're watching later. This is something I'm going to try to do regularly, is just offer some insights about what's going on astrologically. And this was my first go, so let me know how you liked it, and perhaps you could share what it is that this collective challenge that the world is experiencing has become for you personally. What is your unique lesson in this? It might be some good fruit for discussion there. And I'll be doing this at 4:30 on Mondays and Thursdays, barring some unforeseen mishaps that always end up occurring at some point. But once again, my name is Kalidas. I'm a Vedic astrologer. I live at Ananda Village, and I'm very happy to be sharing with you. So thank you for tuning in, and I have a lot more I'd like to share, so I'll see you on Thursday, and many blessings to you all.